Good news, guys. Today we're going to get back into painting. The paints have come in and we have these beautiful new paint sets. If you're an at-home learner and you already have paints, you can follow along. If you don't have paints, please ask your parents to stop by the main office of the school and ask for paints and oil pastels. And the people at the main office can give you those and an art kit if you don't have one already. So let's get started. When you first get your paints, you're just going to have the paints, paintbrush, and a pencil. The first thing you need to do is write your name, write your section and your name with the pencil. Try to make it as dark as you can. Remember, you're writing your name, not my name. I only wrote my name because I'm going to claim this paint set as my paint set. Make sure you do it on the white plastic part at the end, not the part with the hole, the other end. Your section and your name. The next thing I want you to do, and this is why we don't have water yet, you're going to get used to your brush. Now this is going to be your paint set to use in art this year, so take care of it. And that means taking care of your brush. You may have seen brushes before that look like this. The end of it is missing hairs and it's really dirty and it doesn't even look right anymore. It's split into a bad hair day. So let me show you how you can take care of your brush so that that won't happen. The first thing that you need to remember, and I've got a dry brush, no paint on it, no water, is how to touch your brush on the paper. So you can practice that by tickling your hand. If it tickles, it's just a very light touch. That's the right way to use your brush. That's the right touch when you are painting on your paper. Now the wrong thing to do is to be pressing it so hard that the brush spreads out like that and maybe even the silver part touches the paper. You don't want to do that because that's going to end up wrecking your brush over time. So always remember you're tickling your paper very softly like you would touch a baby, okay? Very softly, very carefully. Not mashing, not digging in the paint. All those things can really wreck a brush, and then your brush will look like this one. Take care of your brush. So the next thing you're going to do after you've written your name and section and you've practiced with your dry brush what it should feel like tickling, you're going to get some water. Don't fill it up all the way. We don't want them to spill. And you're going to get a piece of waste paper and your sketchbook. The next thing you're going to do after you've gotten the waste paper, your sketchbook, and some water is you will create some practice paintings. So on a page in your sketchbook, and it's okay if it's a page that already has stuff on it, like you could choose the page that you don't like in your sketchbook. Maybe you started something and you didn't finish it or whatever. That's fine. It doesn't matter if it's a blank page or not. You're going to draw maybe like 4 quick rectangles. They do not have to be perfect. We're not using rulers. Just 4 quick rectangles for some practice painting. Now before we start, I want to tell you guys, sometimes kids, they're using paint and then they want to wipe something and they go run and grab a tissue. Guys, the tissues in the art classroom are only for your nose. Please do not go get tissues to do watercolor with, and don't take paper towels either. This waste paper is what you would use instead of paper towels or tissues. All right, it might be newsprint, it just depends on what we've got, but we'll always have some waste paper for you to use. So when you are painting, the important thing to remember about watercolor is that it needs water. So the first thing you want to do is starting with the purple, and this is purple right here. Okay, it goes black, brown, purple or violet, blue, green, and then the warm colors. You're going to wake them up. Don't wake up the black and brown. We almost never use the black and brown when we are watercolor painting. They usually end up making our paintings look really muddy, so stay away from them. Don't use those two unless we have a really good reason to. So I'm going to wake up the paint by putting one quick drop of water on each of the colors that I will be using. So if you're not using all the colors, don't wake them all up. So they now have a drop of water on them. Now these two are dry, and I want to show you something real quick. If I touch that, nothing happens, okay? That's why we call it watercolor. If it's dry, nothing happens. You have to use water with it. Now the cool thing about watercolor is you can control how dark or light the color is by how much water you use. So we're going to try an experiment here. On our first rectangle, I'm going to do a little wiggle of water all the way across, or almost all the way across. And now I'm going to choose one of these colors. I think I'll take violet, purple, why not? And I just kind of dance the brush in it just a little bit, and that will get tons of paint on it. And now let's see what happens if I just barely touch it to that water that I put on there. Wow, do you see how the color is traveling into the wet area? So it goes from dark to lighter to really light lavender or violet. All these fancy words for purple. So you can see what happens if you just let it soak into a puddle of water. So you might want to go ahead and try that a couple times. Clean your brush. To clean your brush in between colors, you just wiggle it in the water. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wipe, wipe, wipe. And then you can check to see if it's clean by painting with water on your little sheet. Get a little bit more, just water. There's no paint on that, just water. And I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle all the way across. And I'll try a different color. Maybe this time I'll try yellow, since it's the complementary color to violet. And we'll see how that blends across. And another way to do it, I'm cleaning my brush. This time I'm going to try starting with my dark color, and instead of getting more paint, I'm just going to wiggle it all the way across and watch what happens. As you start to run out of paint, it goes from dark to light. So you can play around with that. That's what this page is for, just practicing and experimenting with the watercolor. Here's another fun thing to try. Paint some kind of a design. Maybe you could, I think I'll paint some spirals just with water. So you shouldn't really be able to see them because it's just water. And you got to do it kind of quickly because you don't want it to dry. And then grab a color, touch it, and see what happens. See where it goes. You could even wash your brush. Always wash your brush in between colors. And try another color. Maybe I'll get a little blue. If it's already dry, like right there it was already dry, it didn't do anything. But wherever it's still wet, it will travel through that water. And you can just play with it and have a good time. See what happens if you cross lines of water over the parts where you painted. You could even make yourself a little dot to dot. Maybe I'm going to put a few dots of my primary colors, blue, yellow, and red. And I'm going to do some swirling or connect the dots through these. Let's see. And just see what happens if you just barely touch the colors and let them blend in between those dots. It's all about the experimenting today. And in the last square or rectangle, you decide what you're going to do. Maybe you want to paint a little animal or a landscape, and I'm going to put it in time lapse, and I'm going to paint something here. This page is for you, just to experiment, to do whatever, and try out some different techniques. Just experiment and go crazy with it, but make sure you keep paint off the table. Paint off your hands. There's no reason that your hands should get painty. This part of the brush is called the danger zone. Your hand should always stay on the wooden handle, never touching the metal, because if you get into that area, it might get paint on it, okay? And remember, the waste paper is where we're wiping our brush. If you need to clean it or dry it, you can wash it in the water, clean it there if you just want to get a little bit of paint. So the rest is in time lapse, and you can start your explorations in watercolor. When you are finished painting, and that will be when you finish one page, because the page will be wet, so that means you cannot close your sketchbook, you cannot turn the page. When you finish one page in your sketchbook, you're done painting for the day. And then you'll have the option to get on your Chromebook or iPad and do something else for a while. When you're finished, you need to keep it open and keep it flat and take it to the rack, the drying rack, okay? So remember, one page finished means you're done painting for the day. You're not painting anymore after that. This page will go in the trash, the waste paper, and you need to make sure that you keep your watercolor set flat. So you will wash your brush, wipe, dry it on the paper, the waste paper, and put the brush away in here. And then close it while keeping it flat. Listen for the click, and you will put this away keeping it flat. If you tilt it, if you turn it upside down while those paints are wet inside, or even if they're just a little bit sticky, they can actually spill into each other and wreck the whole set. So make sure you keep it flat. You're not turning it upside down, you're not tilting it. Keep it flat and go put it away. If you take good care of your paint set, it will last you for a really long time. I still have paint sets that I use now that I used when I was a kid. So take really good care of your paintbrush and your paint set, and they will last a long time.